For 2 weeks, this war was fought from the sky. Bombers, drones, precision strikes hitting targets across Iran. But now something has changed. The United States is sending 2,200 Marines and a massive amphibious assault ship toward the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that controls a huge portion of the world's oil supply. And Marines aren't pilots. They're the soldiers you send when you need to take something or fight for it, which means this war may be entering a completely new phase. The question seemed simple. When will this war end? Standing before reporters, President Donald Trump paused for a moment before giving an answer that surprised even seasoned journalists. When I feel it in my bones. It was not a timeline. It was not a strategy. It was a feeling. In the middle of a rapidly expanding conflict with Iran, the comment revealed something deeper, uncertainty about how the war might actually end. But within hours, a far more concrete signal arrived. The Pentagon announced the deployment of 2,200 U.S. Marines aboard the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli, moving toward the Strait of Hormuz. Officially, the mission was framed as a security operation. Its objective: reopen and secure the vital shipping lanes of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical energy corridors on the planet. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil flows through this narrow waterway every day. But sending Marines is never a routine decision. Marine expeditionary units are designed for rapid assault, crisis response, and amphibious operations. Their deployment signals readiness for missions that go far beyond patrols or airstrikes. For weeks, the war had been fought mostly in the air, missiles, drones, and long-range strikes. Now, the presence of thousands of Marines near the strait suggests something different. The conflict may be entering an entirely new phase. For the first weeks of the conflict, the war unfolded almost entirely in the air. American and Israeli aircraft carried out a relentless campaign of strikes against Iranian military infrastructure. Fighter jets, long-range bombers, and armed drones moved constantly across the region, targeting missile launch sites, radar installations, and command facilities. According to military briefings, more than 15,000 Iranian targets had been struck since the opening days of the war. This strategy had a clear advantage. Air power allowed the coalition to attack from a distance while limiting direct exposure to ground combat. Pilots could launch precision strikes and return to base within hours. Drones could loiter over targets for extended periods, gathering intelligence before firing. For a time, it appeared that this model of remote warfare might define the entire conflict. But the deployment of 2,200 U.S. Marines suggests that the limits of air power may have already been reached. Unlike fighter jets or drones, Marines are not designed for distant strikes. They are trained to land, secure territory, and physically control strategic locations. Amphibious units like the one aboard the USS Tripoli specialize in operating close to shorelines and critical maritime choke points. And few choke points are more sensitive than the Strait of Hormuz. Sending infantry forces into such a contested environment introduces new risks, because once troops are on the ground, the war is no longer being fought from a safe distance. It becomes immediate and far harder to control. To understand why the deployment of Marines matters, you have to understand the geography of the battlefield. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the narrowest and most strategically important waterways in the world. At its tightest point, the channel is only about 33 kilometers wide. Within that narrow corridor, massive oil tankers, cargo vessels, and naval ships move through carefully defined shipping lanes every single day. And the stakes are enormous. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through this single stretch of water. Energy shipments from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and other Gulf producers must all travel through the strait before reaching global markets. Any disruption here is felt almost immediately in energy prices, shipping costs, and financial markets worldwide. But the geography also creates a strategic vulnerability. Along the northern side of the strait lies Iran's long coastline, stretching hundreds of kilometers across the Persian Gulf. Over the years, Iran has built an extensive network of coastal missile batteries, naval bases, and surveillance systems designed specifically to monitor and threaten shipping traffic moving through the corridor. From this vantage point, missiles, naval mines, and fast attack boats can potentially challenge even the most powerful naval forces, which is why the Strait of Hormuz is more than just a shipping lane. It is a pressure point in the global economy, where military control of a few kilometers of water can influence energy markets across the entire world. For decades, Iran has prepared for exactly this kind of confrontation. Rather than trying to match the United States ship for ship or aircraft for aircraft, Iranian military planners focused on a different strategy: coastal denial. Along its long shoreline facing the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, Iran has built a dense network of anti-ship missile systems designed to threaten vessels moving through the narrow waterway. These weapons are capable of targeting tankers, cargo ships, and even heavily armed naval vessels. But the true strength of the system lies in how it is deployed. Many launchers are mobile, mounted on trucks that can move quickly between hidden firing positions. Others are stored in underground bunkers and hardened tunnels built into the mountains and coastline. Crews are trained to disperse, relocate, and fire from multiple locations, making it extremely difficult to predict where the next launch might come from. This creates a serious challenge for air campaigns. Even sustained bombing operations may destroy some missile sites, but eliminating every launcher is nearly impossible. As soon as one position is targeted, another can emerge somewhere else along the coast. Iranian officials have repeatedly claimed that their coastal missile forces remain operational and ready even after waves of airstrikes. The strategy is not necessarily to defeat a superior navy outright. Instead, it is designed to achieve something simpler and far more disruptive: to make the Strait of Hormuz too dangerous for enemy ships to pass safely. The military tension in the Strait of Hormuz has quickly translated into an economic shock felt far beyond the Middle East. Shipping traffic through the narrow waterway has reportedly collapsed by nearly 94% as companies struggle to assess the risks of entering an increasingly volatile corridor. For many shipping operators, the calculation has become simple: the danger is too high. As a result, thousands of vessels now sit idle outside the strait, anchored in nearby waters while crews and companies wait for signs that the route may become safe again. But the disruption is not only about missiles or naval threats. Insurance companies, an essential part of global shipping, have begun refusing to cover ships entering the conflict zone. Without war risk insurance, even the largest tanker operators cannot legally move cargo through the region. The consequences are immediate. Energy markets across the world have begun reacting to the uncertainty. Oil prices have surged and fluctuated dramatically as traders attempt to calculate how long the disruption might last and whether global supply chains can absorb the shock. In response, several governments have started releasing oil from strategic petroleum reserves, attempting to stabilize prices and reassure markets. But these reserves were never designed to solve a long-term shutdown of the world's most critical energy corridor. They are temporary tools. And as the strait remains unstable, the deeper question facing global markets becomes increasingly urgent. How long can the world's energy system function if this vital passage stays closed? Now, thousands of U.S. Marines are sailing toward one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth. Aboard the USS Tripoli, the Marine Expeditionary Unit moves steadily toward the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow corridor where the interests of global energy markets, naval power, and regional rivalries all collide. At the same time, the air war continues. American and Israeli aircraft are still striking Iranian military targets across the region, attempting to weaken missile infrastructure and suppress coastal defenses. The skies remain crowded with fighters, surveillance aircraft, and refueling tankers supporting the expanding campaign. But the arrival of Marines introduces a new variable. Infantry forces operating near such a contested maritime choke point carry risks that airstrikes alone do not. Ships, landing craft, and ground units become far more exposed to missiles, naval mines, and small boat attacks along Iran's heavily fortified coastline. Meanwhile, Iranian leadership has signaled that it intends to continue resisting the pressure, framing the confrontation as a struggle for regional sovereignty and strategic control of the Gulf. Neither side appears ready to step back, which raises a deeper question about the future of the conflict. Wars that begin with airstrikes can sometimes be limited and controlled, but once ground forces move into the equation, the stakes change dramatically. And in the narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz, even a small escalation could reshape the balance of power across the entire region.